noise!
Hello and welcome to another edition of Truth and Rhythm. Brought to you by funkinstuff.net, this is the interview show that gets deep in the pocket with contemporary music's foremost masters of the groove. I am your host, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine, musicologist, creative arts journalist, and multimedia pro. Whether you're watching the video version of this show or the audio-only podcast version, I thank you so much for your continued interest and support in this show. If you enjoy this programming, there are several ways to help support Truth and Rhythm, as well as contribute to further enhancements and expansion, plus get some sweet perks and rewards in the process. First, subscribe to the Funk and Stuff channel on YouTube, which is where Truth and Rhythm lives, and be an advocate by spreading the word among fellow funk, jazz, and R&B music lovers. Second, join Truth and Rhythm's new membership program through Patreon, which features 3 tiers for truth believers, truth seekers, and truth crusaders. You can also submit a direct donation to the cause anytime at funkinstuff.net. At that site, which is loaded with awesome content, you can also purchase the book Everything's on the One, The First Guide of Funk, shop for official Truth and Rhythm and Funk and Stuff merchandise, and use the Amazon links for all of your online purchases, which allocates a percentage to this show. Sponsorship opportunities are available as well. Contact me directly at scottg@funkinstuff.net. For those of you who go the extra step in supporting the show, you have my heartfelt gratitude for allowing us to continue to shine the light on those special artists whose quest is to find truth in rhythm. I'm delighted to welcome to the Truth and Rhythm Mothership singer Shirley Hayden, who since the late 1970s has been one of P-Funk's most unique and well-heard voices. Serving as a member of Parlet, she also appeared in albums by Parliament, Funkadelic, Bootsy Collins, The Sweat Band, Felipe Wynne, the P-Funk All-Stars, George Clinton, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Andre Fox, and Gary Scheider. Hayden has also sung for Kid Rock and Sheryl Crow. In recent years, she has continued to bring the serious funk on her own and in collaboration with a group known as the Blackman Revue. Shirley, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good considering everything that the country, the world is going through. I am doing really well. Thank you for asking.
Well, it's so great to have you. Much appreciated you carving out the time and spending it with us.
You're very welcome. And thank you for asking.
And you're coming to us from Detroit area or whereabouts?
Detroit, where it is snowy and icy today.
Growing up in Detroit, such an incredible musical hotbed, especially for funk and soul. What was it like for you early on, and how did you gravitate towards singing?
All of my life, I have sang. My father was a vocalist, a bass voice, not realizing how young my parents were back in the day. But Dad was a part of a couple of gospel groups. My father's family, grandma, my uncle Bobby played piano. He played gospel piano with the Meridian Mass Choir. They traveled the country back in the 80s. Yeah, they were really hot in the 80s, traveling the country doing gospel music. So, I was raised with the music, the voice being that center of attention, having a a good voice. Elementary school, I was always in choir. My early teaching was with Mrs. Sane. She really, um, she was a coach, and she was a motivator for young, bashful Shirley to step out and sing. So yeah, I started early. Um, as a teenager, I was part of many startup groups. One being a group called Stahim, and Stahim consisted of myself, my best friend Ping, the Carter brothers, Robert Carter, Kevin Carter, um, Benjamin. It was a beautiful group, and we would play the local uh, parties, local 876, all of the local parties. We played numerous neighborhood bars, just honing our talents, basement, woodshedding. We get together whenever just to practice. So that's what it was all about. Getting together and woodshedding, honing our talents.
Who were some of your musical heroes and singers that you really admired?
Back in the day, I would say it was Parliament Funkadelic, mesmerizing music. The funk rock groups, Vanilla Fudge, Steppenwolf, Mandrell, it was the Beatles, of course, Fifth Dimension, so many. I love group singing. I love jazz, Miles Davis, Betty Davis. Yeah. Motown, of course. All of the Motown groups were, and they were so close because they were here in Detroit. You could see them at your high school. The Temptations came to our high school, Northwestern High School. It was really huge. It was big. But the spotlight has always been on music, my musical group. So it's in my blood, I guess you could say. It's as my grandma would say, it's in your blood, baby.
I understand. Yeah, that's how I feel like, growing up in Los Angeles, I always say that, entertainment is in my blood, just from being in that environment, so
Okay.
yeah, I'm sure coming up in Detroit, it was the same way musically.
Do you perform?
I dabble,
Okay.
That's part of the reason why I was a disc jockey for many years. So
Okay.
that's a big way that I've gotten the music to people.
In California?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that where you're from?
From Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah. What level of performing did you achieve before connecting with Malia and P-Funk?
In numerous semi-professional groups around the city. We traveled a little bit, honing the skills, church, doing local plays. So that was basically at the extent of what I was doing before joining P-Funk. I was ready. I was ready because being a part of numerous semi-professional groups, um, you learn how to work a stage. You learn how to interact with the audience, especially doing nightclubs. People are drinking and hooting and hollering. So you learn how to interact with the audience, um, and just practice. I loved practice. We would get up in the morning playing records. We studied the album covers. Um, we would break songs down. That was part of our study. So just, honing, woodshedding. Yeah.
And how did you come to know Malia, and how did that transpire that you were invited to come participate or join?
I was dating, let's see, around 77, 76, 76, 76, about 76. I was dating um, Debbie Wright's brother, Jim Wright. And hanging with Jim, we went to all the concerts. He just had a knack for getting into concerts backstage. He had that gift of gab. And then his sister, being the star that she was, it seemed to me that people knew Debbie, just name dropping, and you're in. You're getting tickets. We'll see you later at the concerts, or we're hanging at the parties. Jim was instrumental in connecting me with Malia Franklin. I was hoping to audition for Debbie maybe a year prior to, I don't know why, I can't recall why I wanted to audition for Debbie maybe a year before getting with P-Funk. I'm just now learning the early backstory of Parlet, which is just fascinating to me. I didn't know that they were Parlet, George Clinton, the whole P-Funk machine, was putting together the girl groups. Malia being from Detroit, but she lived in LA. And I know that she was performing around LA. And she was in contact with members of Parliament Funkadelic. I believe that George was a close friend of her family. So she knew that they were looking to put together this girl group. So they had her in mind. When Debbie Wright became ill, by my being in the position that I was in, dating her brother, I had sort of the inside look at what was going on and why they were looking for other females. Malia had been set up to be a member of Parlet early on, with the promise of having a solo career under the Parliament Funkadelic flag. Meanwhile, I need you to become a part of this female trio. Then signing contracts with Casablanca, she would have her solo deal. Malia came to Detroit along with her then husband, Donnie Sterling, who became Parlet's bass player and band leader after a while. Yeah, she came to Detroit. The females, Brides of Funkenstein, Debbie Wright, Jeanette Perkins, were in and out of Detroit recording. And Jim Wright happened to be talking to Malia Franklin one afternoon about what was going on with his sister and forming this new group. And he introduced us. We started hanging out, and one thing led to another. So that's how I met Malia. She came to Detroit. Her family lived here. Her mom, her father, her sister, and Seth was here. So she had been in and out of Detroit. But I didn't know her prior to joining Parlet.
Did you have to audition?
I did, which was frightening. Like I said, I tried to audition for Debbie earlier, and I really can't recall what that's about. Maybe I have to ask Jim about that. What was that about? But I did. I had to audition, and like I said, they were looking for girls, and it was a hurried situation because Parlet being Debbie Wright, Jeanette Perkins, and Malia Franklin, that was the first phase of Parlet, had started recording The Pleasure Principle. And something was going on with Debbie, and they needed to fill that spot because Debbie was no longer able to continue or to begin a tour. She started the recording, but I believe they saw that Debbie would not be able to, she wouldn't be able to withstand a tour. So they needed to fill that spot. And that had a lot to do with the contractual agreements with Casablanca Records, Neil Bogart and George and them. So Neil Bogart, who was the president of Casablanca, and George agreed upon whatever terms they agreed upon. Malia was to have a solo deal. She was also supposed to be the lead singer for Parlet, unbeknownst, I believe, to Debbie Wright and Jeanette Perkins. I think that started a lot of tension. And one afternoon, my boyfriend then was Jim Wright and Malia were talking on the phone about what needed to happen with the group. Jim put together the musical, the band, and Malia, I guess, was in charge of finding the voice because I was not the first choice. I believe there was a girl out of California, a friend of hers, a friend of Malia's that she had been singing with, who was her first choice. But this afternoon that Jim and Malia were on the phone, and Jim always playing the music in the background, I just happened to be singing to The Pleasure Principle, and Malia asked, well, who was that singing? And Jim said, that's Shirley. And she said, well, damn, that's the voice right there. And so it was on for me after that.
So your first experience with them was actually performing on stage or in a studio?
My first performance was in the studio. My first performance was, let's see, how did that work. Did I do the Parliament? Because Parliament was recording One Nation at that time, finishing the touch-ups on One Nation. The touch-ups being added background vocals and hand claps. And I believe that was my initiation. Yeah. Okay. So Ron Dunbar, there was a meeting. They had put together the band. We were rehearsing Parlet. It's kind of fuzzy right now, but which came first? It was all happening at the same time. I auditioned for Parlet. Ron Dunbar gave the finger up. She's okay. Went back, shared that information with George. I was invited to be a part of the recording, the latter recording of One Nation. That was my first recording. Yeah, that was my first recording. So I recorded the added background vocals with Parliament Funkadelic, hand claps, Parliament Funkadelic. Meanwhile, in the studio, finishing, well, Pleasure Principle was completed. So I toured. We went on tour. So I toured the Pleasure Principle album. The second album, I was a vocalist on the second album. Malia began the recording of the second album, which is The Booty Snatchers, but she didn't complete it. So yeah, all that was happening simultaneously. It was a lot going on. It's a lot going on, Scott.
Yeah.
I tell you, it was so magical. You know, every day there was something going on, something musically happening. The studio wasn't that far from my house, United Sound Systems, which was on 2nd Avenue off of West Grand Boulevard here in Detroit. Well-noted studio. Don Davis was the owner of the studio. Some of everybody recorded out of United Sound. But like I said, it was happening every day. There was something going on. So I was recording, and I was readying to go on tour to work the Pleasure Principle album. So that's what we did. And meanwhile, I was recording the hand claps and some additional vocals on One Nation, which was my first recording. And then came the Motor Booty affair. Yeah, that was in the winter. So this time, November, December is a very important time in my musical careers when it all started for me professionally, I would say. Well, Pleasure Principle was the latter part of the summer, yeah. And then the fall, winter, we started recording the Motor Booty affair. Yeah. It was a lot going on.
Yeah, you came in right 78. I mean, it was just in full fury right then.
Yeah,
I mean,
he was
God.
kicking them out. I mean, it was like a assembly line. It was an assembly line. And I was a part of it.
Yeah, gosh. How was it worked out with the three of you in Parlet? You know, how you would work your harmonies and, you know, who would, you know, take leads and that kind of thing?
Well, with Parliament Funkadelic, they just threw you in, just, you know, pushed you into the mic. Gary Scheider was noted for pushing me into the mic. You know, get up in the mic. And I'm thinking, I can hear myself loud and clear. And I didn't want to stand out like I was standing out, but I couldn't help it. You know, the voice was there. And this is what he was showing me, we like that sound. I like the timbre of your voice. So get up in the mic, you know. Um, we, by my knowing harmony already, because of my studies, it was easy. I have an ear. You have to have an ear in order to do harmonies. And so Parlet did all of their harmonies and yeah, so I had an ear for harmony, and I had a tone that Gary, who acted as our vocal coach for the most part, enjoyed. So it was really easy for me to support the girls vocally. I followed Malia for the most part. She was the most professional. Her voice was, she was very comfortable singing harmonies. And everyone is not comfortable in singing harmonies because you can't hear. You have to be able to hear the different levels. So it was easy for me because of my background in studying voice. So I didn't have a problem. I didn't have a problem falling into place. And then creatively, I like to play around with the voice. You know, I knew how to use my voice. You know, I knew how to support the other vocalists. But like I said, I was trying to stay out of the way, vocally speaking. But Gary insisted upon my being out front vocally. So, and then I'm picking up, you know, you're picking up all of these different vibrations from the other women. Malia didn't care. Malia was solid in what she knew that her career was on solid ground, so to speak. She was going to have a record deal. So she had no problem sharing vocally, opening herself up to me. We liked one another. We used to hang out quite a bit. My Pisces sister, she has a birthday coming up very soon. We liked one another vocally. And so we played off one another vocally. Jeanette, on the other hand, wasn't so easy to follow vocally. But she had no choice but to be a part. If she wanted to be a part of the group, she had to take part in supporting the three-part harmonies. We also did the background for Parlet as well as the lead. Some people are mistaken. Some of the fans tend to think that other females were doing the lead parts. No, Parlet did their own leads. But I tell you this, before I joined Parlet, Parlet being Debbie Wright, Jeanette, and I believe Malia Franklin did some vocals on the Pleasure Principle album, which was their first album. There was another group that was hired to strengthen the vocals in the studio, and that was a group called Brandy. Yeah. So Brandy came in to strengthen. I don't know if Brandy was in there before Malia came to Detroit, or while they were finishing the last touches of the pleasure principle. But yeah, there was another group called Brandy that came in to strengthen the vocals. But once I joined forces with Malia, which is the second phase of Parlet, the vocals were on, I have to say. They didn't have to show me anything
Yeah.
vocally. Yeah, I had the talent. I had the talent. I didn't realize that I had a look, and I had stage presence, from what I was told. So I was young and inexperienced as far as a big stage was concerned. So I knew how to work a small stage, being, local bars and such. But a huge stage like Soldier Field, in front of 700,000, like, wow, it was thousands of people. That was overwhelming. Yeah. That was overwhelming.
You're with some of the greatest musicians that ever did it. How did it feel when you actually got up on stage, for the first time, and you have these guys playing behind you and it's on the one, and people are vibing, and what was that? I mean, your adrenaline must have been pumping.
It was. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't get my footing. I relied on the other two ladies heavily for direction, guidance, but they were in their own world. So I had to find my footing. I had to connect with my head and my body. I had to do that. So it took a minute. We had a badass band. Our band, which Jim Wright put together, was one of the most awesome bands that ever came together. So we worked 6-7 days in the basement readying to go on tour. So we had a connection with the band, and we just flowed. It was magic, like I said, because we practiced, we rehearsed every day. It was like building a car, so to speak. Putting those elements together. We had all the elements, and we were learning how to put the elements together. Once we hit stage, it was on. But hearing someone like Bootsy's Rubber Band, I'm like, well, I was mesmerized. Here we are on stage with Bootsy's Rubber Band, or we're on tour with people like Rick James and such. It was a bit overwhelming, I must say.
What was your early impression like of George?
Of George? George was he was a little guy at the at the time that I first met him, and very standoffish. He was one who would be in the cut, so to speak, and he's listening and observing all the time, which made me nervous because he never did speak much to me, just stared a lot. And so I thought that was a little weird. I wanted him to speak to me, but he was very observant, and he was studying. He had a huge presence. You knew when George walked in the room that was George Clinton. But it took a while before he, of course, he's giving Ron Dunbar, Ron Ford, they're in conference, I'm sure, whenever, and he's given the okay for these functions to be dealt with, supported, my vote, my being a part of what's going on. But as far as saying to me, hey, Shirley, welcome, blah, 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 no, it was none of that. So he was a little strange, I liked him. I thought he was taller than what he is. It's the boots that he used to wear. So he had this huge presence, but yet there was this little man with this big persona. So yeah, I needed to speak with him. I needed to know that I was okay, that he was okay with me. And I found out later, well, hey, if you weren't okay, you would have known from the beginning that you are not okay. But he loved it. He accepted it. He enjoyed what I was doing. I found out later.
What about what was your exposure to Bootsy?
Bootsy, yeah, he was very shy, very standoffish. Um, just a sweet, sweet soul. But he had a lot of people surrounding him. So it was really hard and by my being new to this organization, it was really hard um, to really get a fix on Boosie because he was recording, and you hear him, you see him, but he was very distant in the beginning. So I looked at him as he was a lot like George. Big presence, but yet very distant, very shy. Yeah. He didn't know me. So it would take a minute for him to get to know me.
Did you get exposure to Bernie Worrell?
Yes. Oh, I love Bernie. Bernie was another huge character. Very playful, very sweet, genius, loved my vocals. Um, I would have done more work with Bernie, I believe, if things hadn't been so political. Uh, Females, the wives. The wives had a lot of influence over their men at that time. And if they didn't like you, you don't get in. You're not getting close to my man. And at that time, Bernie's wife, I guess she had been studying me for a moment, and we were in Europe. We were in London and in one of the hotel rooms talking and laughing. And she presented me with a scarf, which I still have. That was a welcoming. That was, I like you, Shirley. That was the extent of it.
And you mentioned Gary, urging you on with your vocals. What can you share about, Gary as a talent and as a person?
Gary was Parlet's producer. He was one of the first producers of Parlet. Gary was the vocal coach. Gary was good with putting the harmonies together. He would give you an idea and you work from the idea. He was, again, Gary, just lots of energy, big ego, just so sweet. Just so sweet. Gary was another, I was surrounded by musical geniuses. All of them were musical geniuses. And Gary taught me how to relax. Just relax. You know, get out of your head, get out of your own head. And we talked a lot about how to approach the song, how to use characters in the song. So he was a big little brother. I think I'm a year older than Gary. I thought he was much, much older, but he just lived a very quick life, very fast life. Yeah, I loved him. He was my first P-Funk mentor, I would say. We spent a lot of time together, and he's responsible for me being on the majority of the music I recorded with P-Funk. He would always call me. He would say, when I get to town, when I call you, when I'm on my way, I want you to be ready. Okay. So I spent a lot of time just hanging out with Gary, picking him up from the airport, taking him to the airport, you know, hanging out in the hotel room, just walking around, eating dinner, you know, whatever, just being in the glow, in the flow of things, just learning how to just flow, how to relax. Yeah. I loved him and his wife, Linda. Big, huge influences, my early P-Funk life. Gary is responsible for my being one of the first vocals. Myself and Malia, we laid the foundation. Myself, Gary, and Malia laid the foundation for a song called Atomic Dog. And I thank Gary for that. I really do.
Wow. Did you get to meet or spend much time with Junie?
Another big influence. Yes, I did. I did. He's, Junie will call me. Well, you know, the fellas are like, okay, so the idea was, who's going to get her first? Who's going to connect with her first? So they're laying in the cut, so to speak, sizing me up. Okay. So the idea, of course, was to record my voice. And that was my connection with Junie. We talked a lot. He would call me when he was on his way to the city. We did a song called The Electric Spanking of War Babies. And there's an exchange in the beginning of this song. It's between a human and a alien.
I have all the vinyls here, by the way. So
Yes, yes.
all the
That
originals.
album cover caused a lot of controversy, unbeknownst to me at the time, that there was a feminine group organization that wanted that album banned because of the album cover. But Junie brought me in to do that recording. And again, I thank him for it. And people don't know that that's me in the conversation with the alien who was Junie Morrison at the time. I loved it. I love recording that album because I could just, you know, space out. I could just get into the creativeness, you know. It was fun. He was, again, a big influence. As a matter of fact, Parlet Junie brought Parlet in to record, I think, two records, two sides. I can't tell you the name of them right now, but it's a Junie Morrison production. It was one of his solo projects. It wasn't Parliament Funkadelic, but one of his solo projects. So he really enjoyed Parlet. He loved our voices.
The thing is about these guys, they were geniuses, and because it was such a big organization, so much was happening in a short period of time, and it's just a lot of the fans are still trying to sort out who did what when.
I know.
And guys like Junie and Gary and even Bernie to some extent, they were kind of enigmatic, and they didn't try to get a lot of attention or fame on their own. And so we're trying to put the pieces together and figure out, who did what and what they were all about,
I know, that's the mystery. And that's what keeps this whole thing afloat, this whole Parliament Funkadelic thing afloat. And I am so grateful for it. And the time is now, because I didn't understand why. Because I thought you knew everything. It was right there in your face, so to speak, I thought. But no, it wasn't. And maybe that was on purpose. Maybe it was purposely done that way. So I thank George, who is the master puppeteer, for creating it that way, because here we are today, 2022. Of course, 1978, I couldn't see 2022. But here we are. This is like a new beginning. So, it's not a comeback, so to speak. It's a continuum and we're unraveling. We're unraveling the music, the inspiration, the people who brought about the inspiration. So I really thank the fans for keeping this afloat. Really, I do.
Well, funk's a way of life, and especially P-Funk. And it shaped us, it molded us, and it's had such a profound impact on us through our lives.
Truly.
True. You're talking about these guys being kind of shy and things like that. Were there one or two guys in the bands in the funk mob that were particularly more outgoing and kind of in your face?
Those people were the ones, the second tier, I guess you could say. They didn't play the role that a Gary Scheider or a Bernie Worrell or a Bootsy Collins played. Gary was all over the place. He didn't care. He befriended everybody. But you had the musicians. There were so many of them. The Blackbird McKnights, the Skeets, oh my God, so many of them. The horn players,
Greg and
Benny
Thomas,
and Maceo and they were, those are like your brothers. They weren't as in your face as they were in your face. Maceo. Skeet wasn't so much. He was shy. Skeet.
The Ali brothers,
the Ali brothers. We were family. We were definitely family. the Ollie brothers, Gordon Carlton, his sister Janice, our keyboard player, oh my God, Ernesto Wilson. There was a man in Salisbury, the drummer Kenny Colton, who was outstanding. Yeah, they were family. Yeah. So we hung out, we broke bread together, we traveled together. Yeah.
Take a look at that.
Oh my God.
The original vinyl.
The original.
Yeah.
It's still in the wrapping?
Well, I keep it in a, I keep them
Oh,
all
okay.
in, I keep them all in. But
Oh, that is so cool.
what do you remember about doing your first full album with them, as Parlet?
Just it was so political because the girls were going through a breakup, a major breakup. They brought me in to do the that was my first recording, my first full recording of an album, but it was so politically motivated. And I say that because Malia was in deep argument, discussion with George Clinton about monies. Jeanette Perkins, who was never happy, it seemed. She was always disgruntled about something. I'm sure she was disgruntled about my coming in. She was probably disgruntled about Malia being in the position that she was in. I believe that Jeanette always wanted to be the focal point. She wanted to be the center of attention. So it was political. It was very political for me. So I felt as though I had to be on, as they say, on the one. So I had to make sure that the role I played was polished, and it was. I loved it. Secretly, I loved it. This is my time to shine, you know. I had said earlier how it took a minute for me to find my footing. You know, you have to get that voice to flow the way that it should flow, because it's like magic. It should be just like effortless. It took a minute. I had step out parts, not realizing that they would be integral to shaping the song at that time. Now I understand, but it was political, and it was so much tension. It was never a relaxed moment, you know, where you can enjoy. I enjoyed it quietly with myself, me, myself, and I. But to share it with the girl, no, I didn't trust. I didn't trust anyone because everybody was crazy. Everybody had a motive for doing what they were doing, and so, you know, I had to keep my feelings close to heart. Had to keep close to heart, but I enjoyed it. It was beautiful. It was a beautiful ride.
There's much more to this great Truth and Rhythm interview. Just continue on to the next part of the episode. Also, be sure to subscribe to this channel. If you've already done so, please share it with friends. And become a member by joining Truth and Rhythm on Patreon, or consider donating at funkinstuff.net. Thank you very much.